Okanagan Sun are fresh off a Week 1 victory, opening up their 2017 season at the Apple Bowl this past Saturday night, where they beat the West Shore Rebels by a score of 19-15. Welcome to another edition of Sunspots. We got lots to talk about with that today, and joined by the head coach as usual, Ben Macauley. Coach, thanks for this. First off, maybe I'll just get your general reactions now that we're a few days removed from the big win. What were you seeing there on Saturday night? Well,
I saw a little bit more about the character of the team. You know, we got to a slow start, found ourselves down 14-0 early in the game, and you know, the big question mark for me was how are these guys going to respond to adversity? And so we had our first taste of that, and I thought they responded really well. There was no change in our demeanor really from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. Guys were pretty positive, level-headed, exactly the kind of guys that we recruited, that we wanted to have part of the program. And at the end of the day, we made more plays and were able to come out with a win. Wasn't the prettiest win, but you know, at this point of the season, we'll absolutely take that against a pretty good team.
Yeah, because we've talked about this before, about wanting to recruit guys that obviously are skilled football players, but have that mental edge and aren't going to get flustered or lose their cool when things maybe don't start well or don't go well for a stretch in a game. And it seemed like you really saw that on Saturday night.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter how talented a player is, how big, fast, or strong. If you can't rely on him in tough times, you're going to have difficulty winning those important games. You know, you might get by with some of the easier opponents, but when you're in a tough game against a team that you're well matched up against, you need that competitive edge mentally. So, you know, that goes back to character and coaching, upbringing in a lot of cases to see where guys have strengths and mental toughness.
Let's talk about early in the game, because for the offense, it was a bit of a tough start on Saturday in terms of not really finding their groove until kind of midway through that second quarter. What did you see early in the game that wasn't working? What were some of the adjustments that you and the rest of the coaches made to help the offense kind of find its feet?
Well, you know, their defensive line is definitely a strength of their team, and we really had no idea what kind of front they were going to give us, what kind of pressures that they would be dialing up. We knew they would be sending extra pressure from linebackers, but we just didn't know how. So once we kind of got an idea of how they were going to do that, we were able to get back to our game plan and kind of figure out how to make some small adjustments to be able to run the football, which is what we love to do. So we like to control the clock. We found we could get some quick passing game going. We had a couple of tough drops, maybe a little bit of nerves from some of the players, but once we shook that off, we were just fine.
Yeah, I mean, their defensive line was something that was fairly noticeable right away with them. They really put the pressure on your guys early on, and it really helped kind of limit you guys in terms of where you were in the field. You had some tough possessions early on where, you know, you were pushed pretty far back into your own side of the field.
Yeah, and that's situationally stuff we've worked on, and we want to work on some more. You know, you never know what you're going to get emotionally and physically. Every game's going to be different, so we just want to try and prepare those situations in practice when we're backed up on our own end, when we don't have the yardage in our favor. Working on those things will be something that we really focus on in the next few weeks to throw a lot of different situations. But when it got down to it, guys made plays when they needed to. You know, sure, we'd like to have a first down or a touchdown every series we're out there. It's just not the reality. And, you know, we're playing against a well-coached team. So we just, at the end of the day, made a few more plays. And I think, you know, not playing our best football, when we do finally put together a full game, it's going to be a pretty impressive product.
Let's talk about your defense as well, because initial reaction was that it was a pretty solid effort from them. And I mean, if I asked you at the start of the season whether you'd be happy with the defense limiting your opponent to 15 points a game, you'd probably be pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I would take that all season long, because we feel that if we can't score at least 15 points offensively, you know, we've got bigger trouble to worry about than what's going on the defensive side. So, you know, we actually felt like a couple plays and we could have held them to a shutout. You know, we don't mind bending a little bit, but when it comes down to it, we make good tackles. We're pretty disciplined in our assignments, and we made a really good adjustment. Coach Mollard, the defensive coordinator, made a great adjustment to take away their short side of the field and force them to throw to the wide side, which is not their strength. So once we forced them into that, it was pretty much a chance for us to capitalize every time they were on the ball.
Exactly, because you were also facing a quarterback who made some good passes early on, but also showed that he was a running threat, both in terms of having backs that he could hand off to, but he also took the ball himself sometimes. So there were definitely options there that you were working with.
Yeah, and if we can force a guy like Scott Borden, who's very athletic, if we can force him to run, that means that they're running into our strength. Our linebackers are the best in the country from sideline to sideline, and they lay a pretty mean hit when they get to him as well. So if that's your guy who's going to carry the ball every play, we'll take our chances with that, take away the deep threat, and we'll get a lick on the quarterback at the same time. We'll take that any day of the week.
Also feel like we've got to talk about special teams, because there were some big plays that your special teams had, with a big blocked field goal at one point. There was a blocked kick at a different point in the game. It seemed like they really came out with some big plays that helped, if not directly impact the scoreboard, they helped turn that momentum around for you guys, it felt like.
Yeah, right off the bat, Cole Klughart came and blocked the initial field goal, and we nearly scored on that play. And then Connor Richard blocked a punt, and both of those are huge momentum shifters. We saw they were getting the ball back a little bit slowly, so we felt like we would be able to get a block, and getting two of them is great, and we actually felt we probably could have got a little bit more than that. But we knew that special teams are a big swinger in the tide of the game. So 3 to 5 plays decide the outcome of the game, and we had most of those on special teams. So when guys like Cole and Connor step up and make those plays, it energizes the team and allows us to kind of breathe a little easier as well.
If we can look ahead to this coming weekend, still here at home for week 2 against a Kamloops team that is going to be a confident bunch. They put up 41 points in their first week when they were playing at home. What did you see out of their game in their first week?
Well, they've got some athletes. There's no question about it. They're well coached. Those coaches have done a good job for the last few years, and they've got some good ball skills on offense. So we're going to have to really be sound in our assignments and tackling, much like this week. Still some unknowns. We don't know how good their opponent was they were playing against. So it's kind of one of those things where we have an idea, but we don't really know the whole story. So we'll get to know them a little bit more as this week goes on. But we're pretty confident that physically we match up well on the O&D line, and that's going to be a game changer for us.
Joined here by a member of the Okanagan Sun defensive line, the team coming off, of course, that big week 1 win against the West Shore Rebels, 19-15 at the Apple Bowl this past Saturday night. Pleased to be joined, Cole Klughart with me. First off, appreciate you taking the time to stop by and chat. I'll get right into how things went on Saturday night, but before we get there, I thought we'd talk a little bit about how you got here to be a member of this team. I know that previously you had some playing experience at the University of Saskatchewan. How did you kind of start there and come here? How did that all play out?
Well, I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. That's my hometown university. So for me, I got recruited there right out of high school. It was a very natural fit. I was actually playing offensive line at the time, and they recruited me right out of high school. So that's kind of where I ended up, and didn't really see the field much for my first 2 years. I went down and played for Team Canada right out of high school and in my second year of university. Ended up getting a concussion, losing a little bit of weight, and then being transferred over to the other side of the ball. And had a pretty successful season that year. Dressed for most of the games, traveled lots. And I don't know, and then some things happened, some coaching changes were made and some decisions were made. And then actually a buddy of mine left the team, Zach Newman, who's been out here for a year previous to me. And he said, well, if you want to make a change in your life and try something new, let me talk to Coach Mollard. And, that's kind of how things led from there. He contacted me on the phone. We talked a little bit, and he seemed like he was pretty excited to get me out here. And I just thought it'd be a great opportunity to prolong my football career and, take the next step.
So what kinds of things had you heard about the program here in Kelowna before you took that step?
I heard it was a really skilled team. I heard that they were doing lots of right things. I heard that the coaches were awesome. I heard that Mollard was a great guy. He ran early base defense really early on in the season and building into more complicated things. I hear that he liked to bring lots of pressure and stuff like that, so I'm sure we'll see more things like that later on in the season. On the offensive side of the ball, I heard they had a pretty good offense last year. I watched them play for the national championship a few years back in Saskatoon, so I just figured it'd be a great opportunity to come play for a great football club.
Yeah, because obviously Saskatoon has a team in the CJFL, and they're one of the top teams in the league too. So I'm sure that you know folks that have been connected with that program too.
Yeah, I have quite a few friends that play for the Hilltops. They're a great program, and Tom Sargent does a great thing down there. I train with lots of the guys at Ignite Conditioning in Saskatoon. I train with lots of those guys from the program. They've got a great team, but at the end of the day, I just kind of wanted to take another step in my life. I'd never really been outside of Saskatoon, so I figured like now would be a great opportunity. I'm 21 years old to move away from home and get that experience under my belt.
And since coming here, what's it been like? What was it like, especially kind of hitting main camp and going through that process? What was that all like for you?
Main camp's always a grind. You know, it's 2-a-days, early mornings. We did some testing. I was just getting to know the guys. Like, it was a really positive atmosphere, like lots of good numbers on the field. It was really exciting, you know, to see where I would fit into the team, where my friends would fit into the team, because I came down with another guy, Mitch Lyons, who used to be a U of S Husky as well. And then obviously with Newman already being here, like, camp was, you know, good. It was exciting, you know, troubles of learning a new defense, new schemes, new coaches, what their philosophies would be and things like that. But all in all, I think it's working out pretty well, and I think everyone's really happy with how everything's panning out so far.
And I mean, lots of talk about that week one matchup too. Lots of folks were saying this could be the top two teams in the conference that are going at each other week one. How did you find it on Saturday night? Was it similar to maybe what you were expecting going into the game, or how was it for you?
We didn't know a lot going in there because, again, they had a lot of coaching change and stuff, but they were a good team. Every team's going to be good. Take no weeks off, take no game for granted. Obviously, we prepare like we're playing the top team in the nation every week. It doesn't matter.
And in terms of the game itself, how do you think you and the D-line did? What was that matchup like? Obviously, they've got one of the top offensive linemen in the country that is talked about, and so you were going up against him. How did you feel that you and your group went?
I feel we have a really good D-line. I feel like we're going to be one of the top D-lines in our conference for sure. We got a lot of hard-working bodies. We got lots of depth, so, you know, we don't have to worry about being plagued with injuries and things like that. Like, we have, I think, a really strong unit, and I think we competed really well against them all day long.
An interesting thing that you were talking about earlier, where you were an offensive guy in the past and made that transition to D-line. Does it help you at all as a D lineman that you've had that offensive experience, and so you can kind of be in their head a little bit, or does it kind of come across as two really separate things? How do you sort of feel about that?
It's always good to know what the other, like, that's what I believe is defense is trying to understand what an offense is doing to you. So from coming from the other side of the ball and knowing that, you know what I mean, by formations and things like that, I kind of have an idea of where they might be trying to run the ball. Like, I think it has a huge advantage. Like, I played most of my career as a offensive lineman as opposed to being a defensive lineman. So I think it does give me a really good advantage of knowing where an offensive lineman's head might be at, what an offensive coordinator might be trying to do, where he's trying to bait me in somewhere, if they're trying to run option plays or maybe thinking about what might be coming next.
Last question for you. Just looking ahead to this next week's matchup, is it a bit of a relief now that the home opener's out of the way and you guys can kind of sink your teeth into the schedule? How are you feeling going into the second week of the season now?
I'm feeling good. I feel like we shook a lot of dust off, and we really started to mesh in the later end of that game. So, you know, it's nice to get that over and done with, but we can't take our foot off the gas. We got to keep improving every day and keep getting better, and I feel like we got a team that can do that, and the commitment's awesome from everyone on the squad. Like, you know, so I feel like it's good now that, you know, week one's out of the way, the home owner's out, we got the jitters out, and it's time to get back to work.
Well, that game coming up this Saturday night at the Apple Bowl, 7 o'clock. That's when the Kamloops Broncos are in town for week 2 of the Okanagan Suns season. That's where Cole and the rest of his teammates will be. And that's all the time we have for Sunspots today, but we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.